Thanks very much, Jeff. And we really appreciate you all coming. It's amazing what God is doing in homeschooling across the nation. If you look for a bright spot in what's happening in the world that sometimes looks dark, one of the greatest things that many people notice is the homeschooling children and parents are growing and learning and exploring and understanding not only the math and science better, but knowing God and knowing the history of America, knowing the history of our faith and our world in a way that's much deeper than has been common in America in the last 100 years. And so it's a privilege both to work with homeschoolers and to work on the homeschool legislation. I think it's a really interesting time to look at the worldviews. A lot of you are interested in the worldview issues, and whether it's a secular humanism worldview or a biblical worldview or other worldviews, the legislative process is a place where the rubber hits the road. For general orientation, I want to first point to the old map here that we've got up on the board. And this is United States. North Dakota is red, meaning that it's one of the states with the highest regulation. If you compare that to the states all around the country here, you notice that we're only red one out in the middle of the Midwest, where some of the red ones are on the east. What homeschoolers would like is to have a green state. In other words, have no regulations on them. And they believe that basically because God gave them their children to raise them in the way that they should be raised. And the Constitution supports that, and they want to do that. And so for the last 22 years or more, there's been legal battles in North Dakota and across the United States to help improve the conditions for education, for home education. Actually, we should say that the home education is not a new thing. You know, it was actually public school that is the new thing on the block. It was about 1889 or so when public school started in North Dakota and compulsory school laws became enforced. And before that, there was a lot more homeschooling and church schooling. And so the public school has been on trial for 100 years, and so now we can see the results of that. A lot of homeschoolers have been blessed to walk around the problems. So we're presenting a bill that essentially would take us from a red state to an orange state, if you use the colors, a state with moderate regulation. In the long run, most homeschoolers would want to have more freedom than that. First of all, we're going to remove the sunset clause. In 2009, the effort of the homeschoolers ended up with a vote so that we no longer have to have a bachelor's degree, a teacher's certificate, or take the national teacher's exam to homeschool without a monitor. Another aspect was that the phrase "in the home" was removed from the first part of the homeschool law, meaning that you can homeschool and count the time if you're at the zoo or the library or out fishing or somewhere else and you're learning something that's valuable. But now the sunset clause that was put on that bill means that it expires. So that advantage that we have by not requiring those things to get out of monitoring or being able to count time that is learning outside the home, those will expire if we don't do something. And so that's the first thing on the list, is to remove the sunset clause and make those changes permanent. There's another point under parental qualifications. We're going to also remove monitoring completely, even for those that even those that do not have a high school diploma or GED. And there's one technical point that we need to mention on the home education bill, and that is under the section after the sunset clause is removed. It says, a parent may supervise home education if the parent holds a high school diploma or GED or meets the monitoring requirements. Okay? So if we remove the monitoring requirements, this is how it would read. A parent may supervise home education if the parent holds a high school diploma or GED. See the problem? If we don't remove the rest of that parental qualifications section, then the only people that can homeschool would be those with a high school diploma or GED. Okay, so simple idea, it just needs to be done. So in other words, we're removing parental qualifications so that it doesn't limit homeschooling to only those that do not have a high school diploma or GED, or that do have a homeschool diploma or GED. Okay, that gets to the next point. The monitoring is being removed completely, really for the same reasons. And that it has not been effective, it's expensive, it doesn't help homeschoolers at all. It's really an interruption to home education efficiency. So you think of it, you get a plan for an hour every week for the first 2 years to go meet in the library, if not at your home, and talk about nothing for an hour. How are you going to talk about an hour for every day, every week for 52 times in a year about what you're doing? And then the monitor actually writes a very short report saying, yeah, the child's making progress or the child isn't making progress once every 6 months. The fourth point is there's a penalty for children if they score below the 30th percentile on a nationally normed achievement test. Okay, and nationally normed achievement tests like Stanford or Iowa or Metropolitan or California achievement tests. And so, okay, the public schools are getting 50th percentile on average, right there, costing $9,963 per year per student. And the homeschoolers are scoring 89, 86 percentile, costing at $600 or less. And the idea here is that we're going to penalize, have been penalizing for many years, the homeschoolers that score below the 30th percentile. And the penalty is to have them go to the public school in order to get an IEP or some education plan adjustment so that the school can monitor and make sure that the homeschoolers are going to improve and get above the 50th percentile at the next time. And so that's really a high-stakes, burdensome problem to homeschoolers. There's not a lot that score below that level, but occasionally there are children that are just not ready or they just haven't studied that material and give them a year or two and then jump ahead 2 grades anyway, and it's just an unnecessary burden on some families. And of course, it's unreasonable to expect these homeschoolers that are doing so well in the method of education, working so well in the tutorial mode, to go to a public school system and expect improvement. It wouldn't be where you want to go. You'd want to go to the homeschool convention and talk to friends that already done it before. And so those are the general things that, and there's the last one is the testing exemption. I'll just mention what it is. Ben is going to give you a lot of detail, but also some of us parents, including me, have philosophical, moral, religious, and other objections to this practice of standardized testing. And so what the bill will do this time, and does, is to take a first step toward removing the burdensome testing. What's being done here is saying that if a parent has a philosophical, moral, or other objection, then they can state that objection, probably on a statement of intent, and that would only be allowed for parents that have a bachelor's degree, a teacher's certificate, or take a teacher's exam. And as that's the way it's written. And so Ben will explain that and how that logic works. And so the idea of having an exemption is at least a first step. We'd like to see testing removed completely. It's been proven that it's not helpful, it's not cost effective, and it's, you've got 10 kids testing every other year, and you hire a monitor, and it takes your time, and it changes your curriculum, it changes your focuses, many things that are not really helpful. So those are the things that are in the bill. And as far as things on how we're working to carry out the details, one thing that could happen is that every Thursday when the schedule comes out with the Legislative Council, it could come out next Thursday and say HB 1211 homeschool bill is going to be heard Monday morning. And so what we really need is your help, because we need people to be there. We need people to contact their legislators, let them know what the bill says, and help explain it to them if they don't quite get what it means, how it works. And then both communicate with them personally and then also go down to the legislative meeting and be there as moral support to the legislators. You can talk to them in between the meetings and answer their questions that they have as the testimonies go forward. We also need testimonies that address each point of the bill. And so I'll be doing kind of a general introduction like I've done here on what is in the bill and some basic points. Ben will be covering the testing details. We've got probably one person, a monitor, that will explain more on monitoring, a couple others lined up. But if you have a personal conviction or feeling or story that you think would be helpful to support the bill, that's what we're asking for now. And the way to get your hat in the plan there is to email me with a testimony or your outline of what you want to say, so we can organize it and we won't overlap it, because we'll have about an hour or so to explain those things. There's a homeschool day at the Capitol coming up on February 3rd. So the idea there also is to connect with the legislators, and so we'll have tables around. I've only got probably 3 or 4 people signed up for tables so far, so what I'm hoping is that we'll have a lot more homeschoolers want to display the things that they're doing. Could be, you could sit there and do your math all day. I don't know who you get to do that, but maybe you could take turns at one table doing math for each, a little bit each time. But just to show legislators and as they're walking by what homeschooling is about. We'll have a few vendors there that maybe also have homeschool materials that will show and tell their wares. But the idea is to make a time where you can visit with your legislators or other legislators that are just wondering, how do these homeschoolers do this? And so anything you have that can help that, come on down. We'll have a piano there. We'll have a podium as well in case we do a couple of talks. But that's another thing very important and needed.